Hey guys, what's up? It's been a minute. I know. Sometimes I just get really lazy and I gotta focus on my other projects and don't really feel like fucking making a video, cutting it, editing it. I know I skipped a few Steel Talk Sundays. I might reel that in for a second and just kind of wrap that into whatever we talk about in normal videos. Just makes it so much easier to do stuff. Weekends are my time with my kids, so every weekend. I mean, I'm not divorced or anything, so. But I like to spend time with my kid and not hustle to make videos. So we'll talk about that for a second. That's out of the way. Fucking coronavirus. What the fuck? I'm not gonna get into that. Sorry, I keep looking behind me. Fucking wind's pounding on my garage door. Not gonna get into coronavirus. Just fucking everyone take care of each other. Don't be a douchebag and buy up all the fucking supplies. Share with your neighbors. I wish I had somewhere to donate. We could donate to a bunch of people, but I don't know. I got my own shit to worry about. So just if you have extra, give it, and it'll get paid forward, I'm sure, in the future. So I was gonna talk about kind of like stainless steel last Steel Talk Sunday, so I'll just wrap that into this. Stainless steel. Yes, this is a KitchenAid kitchen knife, but it is the majority of a lot of knives in our kitchen are made of stainless. Why is that? Well, back in the day, people were bitching about, steels kind of like when they cut through acidic foods, they kind of got dirty. We know this from like all our carbon steels. And stainless had that added protection. How did it have that added protection? Basically, oxidation. The simplest term ever is oxidation. What about oxidation? So we have chromium in the steel, and I'll explain that in a second. So we have chromium. Chromium oxidizes in oxygen. Anything that oxidizes is due to oxygen. Fruit oxidizes when it turns brown. Aluminum oxidizes. Iron oxidizes and turns to rust, iron oxide. As simple as that. It's just oxidation. That's what happens. However, this is, instead of having an ugly rust color when it oxidizes, we get a nice layer of chromium oxide. And that kind of shields, if you will, the steel from certain harmful corrosive things like acidic foods. And that's where we get that. That's exactly what makes stainless steel stainless. Pretty much bare bones, layman's terms, it oxidizes from chromium. So where does it get the chromium? When we have our steel and we get it from the factory, it's been melted, it's been smelted, whatever. It already contains all the things that we need. It contains the carbides, it contains all that stuff. It already contains all that. We're not making carbides when we're heating it up in an oven. It's just there. What we are doing is when we heat it up, we are putting certain elements, or not elements, we're putting certain putting certain things are growing and shrinking and all that. So if we heat it up too high, our grain size grows. If we heat it up too high, we're dissolving these carbides and putting more carbon and chromium in solution. And once we do that, that's where we get our chromium. Our chromium in solution is what helps with stainless steel. If we have chromium locked up in carbide form, then we're using that for wear resistance. We're not using it for corrosion resistance. So there's trade-offs, again, to when you are heat treating steel. And stainless, obviously, because we want a very high wear resistant stainless steel, but we also want that corrosion resistance. And when we want that, we want to heat the steel up to a certain temperature to where we're dissolving those carbides and we're getting that chromium in solution. So once we heat it up to a certain point, we get enough chromium in solution, we quench, boom, we got our chromium in solution, and now we can get that oxidation going and we can create a stainless steel. And it will be protected to certain acidic foods. Obviously, if you dip it in a thing of acid, it's not going to work, but we've all used, I think, knives in the kitchen. and that's where we get that. So I just want to touch on that really quick. And as far as like our EDC knives and all that stuff, like that's where we get that nice stainless or corrosion resistance from, is the chromium, basically. So in that same vein, when I did that Lc200 test, I was really blown away at the performance. I was blown away at the edge that knife took. And there were a lot of, I actually brought it up on Reddit and got fucking lambasted for saying that that edge takes a crazy edge, regardless if it does or doesn't. Again, I think sharpening is anecdotal, but I also think that certain steels do hold certain sharpness properties. Yeah, can you get them all fucking razor sharp? Yes. Will they hold that razor sharpness? No, not all of them. So, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. It's just something that annoyed me. But I got you guys, so. So what did I do? Did that test. I was super hyped about the performance. I was super hyped about that knife. So I went out and bought, nope, not a Spidey Chef, but I went out and bought a Native 5 Assault in Lc200n. The reason why I got this knife was because A, it's fairly inexpensive. I don't want to spend fucking a ton of money on knives unless I really, really want them, or unless they're like a crazy steel that I'm into. And I also got this one because I think the Native 5 platform is one of the better platforms as far as a knife. I mean, yeah, it's a lockback, but I mean, you can close it with one hand. Don't be dumb like Eric did on that video and cut his finger. You can close it with one hand. You can open it with one hand. It's a very useful platform. It's very light. It's very ergonomic, I guess. I'm not saying that the other ones aren't, but this one is very good. And I mean, if you get a blade out here, like this pocket sword that I have, it gets a little intimidating in public. So that's the reason why I wanted this one. Probably gonna utilize this platform and buy different steels in it and stuff like that. Anyway, I want to get into this because I want to do a little, like a series, I guess, on the Lc200n. I want to kind of shift gears for a second until I get my oven in, and then kind of do testing on this. This is a brand new knife. I've only cut a slice of phone book paper with it, and I want to test the factory edge on our rope here. I want to see what we get, and then I want to, sharpen it with different sharpening. I want to carry it actually, and then I want to sharpen it with different abrasives, and I want to see what kind of performance we get with that. Again, it could be anecdotal, it could not be. It's going to be one test of many, I think, that I want to do. I might regrind this. The numbers I pulled off of this, as far as the behind the edge thickness, first I started out with my thickness gauge, and I got 17 thousandths behind the edge. I wanted to verify it, so I used the calipers there, and I got 17 thousandths behind the edge. Very respectable behind the edge, very thin behind the edge. I remember these things being fairly thin behind the edge. Certainly not 20 thousandths like the other Spydercos, or specifically the Para 3 and the PM2 platforms. This one's very good. The edge angle is 35 to 30 degrees total, or 18 to 15 degrees per side. Again, I have not sharpened this on anything. This is factory edge. They haven't even stropped it. It looks very well. The grind looks very well, very even. I mean, there's some nuances to that. That's a human versus machine sometimes. And also we don't have a jig that we're putting it in and getting all the angles correct or spot on. So with that said, we're gonna run this test. That's all we're gonna do, is just run this test. We'll talk about it for a second. I'm not gonna have anything to compare it to other than that other Lc200n, the Spidey Chef platform that I did. But I think this one's gonna do fairly well. It should. And I'm not looking for crazy numbers because, again, we don't have a ton of carbide volume in this. This steel is made to get that chromium in solution and kind of aid in that corrosion resistance to a higher level. Higher level than our S30Vs and S35BNs and our stainless steels. So I'm gonna get into that and we'll talk about it for a second and then we'll go from there. Again, try to make these videos sort of short and then kind of wrap in some steel talk into it. So I don't want them too long, but you know, this one might be a little longer because I can't shut up. So let's get into the test, and we'll get started on this little stainless steel / Lc200n series. Thanks. So I ran the test and I got some interesting results. Again, this test is going to be ran a few times with different edges. But yeah, so the results I got was, so we had Lc200n at an edge angle of 35 to 30 degrees, so 18 to 15 degrees per side. Behind the edge thickness was 17 thousandths. And I got total cuts, or total passes, I guess, or turns, 15 times 10 times 2 equals 300 cuts. Now I know some of you are like, oh, why do I get so many cuts? What about maximum 4? I know, okay? Relax. So, the maximum PM2, which had a behind the edge thickness of 23 thousandths behind the edge, and that did 360. But the regrind had a 50% increase, or a 66% increase of 600 cuts. So a thinner edge, and that was 15 thousandths behind the edge. Okay. Spyderco M4 did 12 passes or 240 cuts with a behind the edge thickness of 20 thousandths behind the edge. And our regrind brought it down to 10 thousandths, and we got a 33.3% increase to 320 cuts. Let's do another one. Nope. Oh, here we go. The CPM Rex 45. This is an interesting one again too. It's kind of an outlier, but the behind the edge thickness was about 21 thousandths, and then the edge angle was actually thinner, so it was actually drawing that edge a little thinner, behind the edge thinner. So that was a 30 degree to 25 degree inclusive at about 21 thousandths behind the edge thickness. But most of your cutting is done up a certain amount of that bevel, so it was probably thinner. There was no easy way to measure that edge other than the traditional way. And then we did a regrind and brought it down to 10 thousandths behind the edge, and we got a 16% or 17% increase. So I mean, all of these sort of make sense as far as the behind the edge thickness, having thinner geometry, and we get a better performance. I don't know why Lc200n got that high, but I mean, it's fairly thin behind the edge. It's 17 thousandths, which is a very thin edge for a production knife, most production knives. And the edge angle, again, was the same edge angle that I usually sharpen at. So I don't know, this is a head scratcher for me. If anyone has any thoughts, let me know. Again, this steel doesn't have a ton of carbide content. It doesn't have a ton of nitride content because this steel contains both nitrides and carbides are going to dissolve at a different temperature than nitrides are. So what we're going to be left with is the nitrides. Do I know why this did this? No, I do not. Something that will tell you more about this is if you subscribe to Knife Steel Nerds, subscribe to their Patreon, doesn't matter what level. And I know everyone's hard up for money right now, but I mean, put on a credit card, pay it later. The Fed just dropped the rates down to basically nothing, so that's going to affect your credit card interest, thus giving you a better income to debt ratio. And I'm not going to teach finance here, but just do yourself a favor, check it out. They're doing catcher testing. You can see it from his Instagram. You see it from other people's Instagrams. Catcher testing is coming, but it's going to be for the knife community. So just put a little bit of money towards it, even if it's $5. You can bump it up later if you want. I don't know. Maybe this will give us a little insight into why this steel did this. Maybe it won't. I don't know. I know they're running this steel. This steel kind of caps out at a 61, I think, HRC, and that's just due to the low carbon. We're not getting a ton of carbon in solution, thus we're not trapping a lot of carbon and making it hard. And that's what makes the steel hard, is just more carbon in solution, kind of like with the chromium. Gives us a better edge on corrosion resistance. So, I don't know why that did that. Again, I didn't sharpen this. It's still schmutz all over this from the test, but it's sharp here, and then it kind of stops right there. So, and you can see that can still kind of slice through the paper, not cleanly, and that's what we're going for, the not clean, and that's where we stop the test. You can do it on this grain too, but like this is pretty sharp. This, not so much in the front where I was cutting. Again, back here, see, we get a nice little stop there. Again, I don't know why that knife did what it did, but it did. I don't know why that steel did what it did. But yeah, I'd like to get more into that. The catcher test results are going to be awesome. It's going to give us a nice range in performance versus what toughness will provide as well. I think they're grinding those, I want to say 10,000ths behind the edge. I'm pretty sure that's what they're grinding all those coupons to, is 10,000ths behind the edge at a 3 or 4 degree. I don't know. Joel B did a video on how he was grinding them. I think it was a 3 degree angle. And then I believe they're sharpening everything to 16 degrees. So 16 degrees per side. So that's going to give a nice performance. So that's in between what I'm sharpening at, and it's thinner than all of your production knives. So it's going to give us a good gauge onto what performance is going to be for those knives. So go check that stuff out. Again, just kind of keep up with me with this. I'm probably going to put a kibosh to Steel Talk Sunday, just because it just seems easier to have a steel and then talk about it and talk about its properties and then go into there. But I do have all that other stuff that I put up there, so go check that out. It's just an intro kind of thing, and we'll just kind of elaborate on all that intro stuff. And then once we get into, more equipment, we can get into more experiments and just kind of like a, I guess, grassroots approach, scientific-ish approach, not so much the way that things are going on in other facets, but that's what I want to do. So we're still going to do the custom versus production testing. Don't think I forgot about that. There's just not a lot of makers that have crazy steels. There's only a few, but I'm going to probably make my own test blades and do that. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. And I think Lc200n is a very good user steel for the price point. I think $117 I paid for this. I got it on Knife Swap on Reddit. There's a really good guy in there that he's a dealer, so he has brand new knives. If you want to get his contact information, just hit me up in the chat or hit me up on Instagram at alexsteingraver.com, or not .com, at alexsteingraver on Instagram, and I'll shoot you his stuff on Reddit. But yeah, I think having a super steel that's stainless is kind of a weird thing, and it's not really my forte. Maybe some people like it. I think having a super stainless steel is awesome, and then having just our awesome tool steels on this other spectrum yeah, meet in the middle is kind of cool, but like I'd rather have one or the other, two things for what I want to do, depending on the job. So, hope you enjoy. Yeah, reach out to me if you want to see anything. We're going to do this testing and continue on with it, and I'll try to make more videos. And give me those regrinds, and I'll have knives for you soon, and then we'll go from there. Thanks, guys. See you.